What is going on, everyone? Welcome in to our next top 10 positional breakdown video for the 2023 NFL Draft. Today, we're going to be doing the quarterback class. Before we do get started, if you could just take a second and please hit that like button down below. It really helps me out. It's a free and easy way to support my channel. It tells YouTube you enjoy the content and to push it out to other NFL fans like you, which I really appreciate. Also, make sure you subscribe. We've got lots more top 10 breakdowns yet to come. This is only our second position group and lots more draft content headed your way. So if you enjoy my draft content, just make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of it. All right, let's get started. Number 10, we're heading to Brigham Young, where we have Jaren Hall, my number 10 quarterback. And if you watched a highlight reel on Jaren Hall, you're probably like, oh my God, this guy is amazing. He's basically Zach Wilson. And, well, nowadays that carries less weight, but there are similarities. He's really athletic. He can run around. He's got that same, like, flip of the wrist release. He's got a pretty good arm. I don't think it's as good as what Zach Wilson had. But here's the deal. He is a true first read and run quarterback, and even worse, he often stares down his first read and can make poor decisions into that first read. He doesn't really have any semblance of pocket presence. Like I said, he's first read and run, and he's like really inaccurate as well. And a part of that is because of that quick release. Zach Wilson had a little bit of this, but I don't think it was as prominent as it is with Jaren Hall. He kind of sometimes starts to throw the ball before he really has a grip on it. So sometimes that ball can get away from him. But even when he can grip it and rip it, he will overcook like half of his deep balls. So the highlight reel is amazing, but the down-to-down consistency is just really frustrating with him. Now, I like the tools, but the weird thing is I don't even really see him as like a developmental prospect. He's 25 years old. How I view him is a guy that can run that kind of Shanahan-style offense. Now, I don't like him quite as much as I liked, say, Brock Purdy last year, which, by the way, go check out my breakdown on Purdy last year in this video for the 2022 draft. Frickin' bullseye on that analysis, by the way. But I do think, likewise, he can run that style of system with the quick ball handling stuff, the quick release, the mobility for read options and play action boots. I think he can step into that type of system, maybe a Miami or San Francisco or something like that, and be a adequate backup that can give you some polarizing starts. Like if he can have good accuracy in an individual game, he can run the show, hit some deep shots, and have good games, just like he did at BYU. But at 25 years old, am I expecting some crazy growth at the next level to turn into some starter? No, I'm not. All right. Number 9 is Aiden OConnell out of Purdue, and he's kind of a breath of fresh air as you're getting into these sort of day 3 undrafted type of quarterbacks, because unlike a Jaren Hall, for example, he reads defenses. He plays quarterback the way you want to see an NFL quarterback play. He can stand tall in the face of the blitz. He will really test tight man coverage, which is something a lot of these quarterbacks struggle with. They need to see guys come open before they pull the trigger. Aiden OConnell doesn't just throw into zone windows with anticipation, but if he's got guys like Joey Porter and tough Big Ten corners running man-to-man on his guys, he will throw those back shoulders. He'll lead his guys and give them a chance at least, which is something these guys all have to do at the next level. He's got a really good pre-snap processor. His time to throw is low. That ball gets out, and that's going to be a desirable trait for a lot of people. Now, the reason he's not discussed as a day 2 guy or a day 1 guy is, unfortunately, he has a confident processor, as I just described, but I think it definitely flirts with being an overconfident processor, where sometimes, I don't know if he's predetermining these reads or not, but he's not checking off of what he thinks he's going to get. And he's throwing a lot of balls into harm's way. He was second in all of Power 5 football in turnover-worthy plays and tied... he was number 1 in turnover-worthy plays in Power 5 football and tied for second in interceptions. So those mistakes are going to come. he's going to let it ride, trust his guy, and get that ball out. And he's also just not some fantastic athlete to extend plays and elude sacks and be a part of the designed run game like a lot of these backup types are. So he's a confident quarterback with an adequate arm and a lack of mobility who's going to put the ball up. Does that sound like someone to you? It does, but if you're not thinking of it, it's Nick Foles. Like, I think he could be Nick Foles at the next level in a best-case scenario, but as we've learned to see over time, that's a backup. So he's an interesting player in that he provides a skill set that not a lot of guys in this draft or many drafts do later into the draft, but there's definitely some limitations and problems in his game as well. And then before we get to 8, I just want to say the Fresno State quarterback, Jake Haener, I was only able to watch broadcast footage on him. I don't have all 22 from him yet, so I haven't fully finished his evaluation. From what I saw, I think he would stack right up with these guys. If you noticed, actually, Hall and O'Connell had the same grade, final grade. I just give O'Connell the nod because of his impact grade. I think he's a better player day one. But I think Haener, from what I saw, similar sort of traits to be maybe a good backup in the NFL. And maybe that changes. That's why I would say whether it's Haener or Max Duggan, who's not going to make this list, or anyone at any position group that doesn't make one of these top 10 videos, if you are curious my thoughts on every player in this draft class, you can get access to my complete draft rankings via my Patreon. That is patreon.com/thatfranchiseguy. We're going to have 15 to 20 quarterbacks evaluated. We'll have like 55 receivers done. We're going to have up to 400 players fully graded, written up, and evaluated come draft day. So you can get access to my full thoughts on all those players. You'll get exclusive film breakdowns as well. We just did one on Will Levis, who we're going to talk about here. And then come April, you'll get team-specific 7-round mock drafts as well for every single team. So lots of exclusive draft content. If you enjoy my draft stuff, you can get even more of it there. And you'll support my channel in the process. This would not be possible without my amazing supporters on Patreon. So check it out. It's patreon.com/thatfranchiseguy. All right, number 8 for me is Stetson Bennett out of Georgia. And, you know, coming into the year, it was kind of like a joke to say Stetson Bennett could get drafted. He was already 24 years old before the year started. Yeah, he won a national championship, but a team that was really carried by their defense, and he just kind of handed the ball off, played point guard, didn't do a ton, didn't make a ton of mistakes, ran around a little bit, but it was like, this guy's tiny, he's old, he doesn't do a whole lot. Why would you draft that player? Well, he at least did enough in this, sixth college season, winning a second national championship, to show real NFL traits, honestly. I think especially his arm. He doesn't have some rocket arm, but he's got solid arm strength, honestly. Like, he can make NFL throws. He can read out defenses, especially out of play action, where he, to me, showed his best stuff. And he can move. He can legit run. He's kind of built like a running back, like a scat back. He's going to come in at like 5'11", 195 pounds. He's going to have the exact same size concerns that like Bryce Young has. But of course, you're not drafting this guy with the #1 pick in the draft. So it just doesn't hurt as much. But you can do all of the designed run, play action boot stuff. And he can do all of that point guard stuff really, really well. He takes good care of the football. He makes good decisions. Is he going to stand tall in the pocket and get through his progressions a bunch of times and run an NFL offense as a starter? No, but in a very similar way to what I said about Brock Purdy last year, you put him in a team like San Francisco or the Miami Dolphins, two teams that might have some quarterback health questions coming into the year, or hell, if he follows his offensive coordinator over to Baltimore as a backup to Lamar Jackson, like, that is perfect. Put him in a situation where he can play point guard, can use him as a runner, take care of the football, read out the play, and if it's not there, just run. That's a very good backup in the NFL. I think he has an awesome floor. He's experienced. He's won 2 national championships. He's thrown 1 million passes. You're not going to put anything in front of Stetson Bennett that he's not going to be able to understand, grasp, and execute. So other than like you know, the high-end starter pro style stuff, but you get the point. Like, you put a game plan in front of him, he can execute it like a point guard. I was pleasantly surprised by his game. Now, the second people start throwing words like potential starter around, I'm out. That's just not the outlook on him. As a 5th, 6th round pick to come in as a quality backup, a cheap backup on a rookie contract, I'm all about it. Just like I said about Brock Purdy last year. All right, my number 7 quarterback is Clayton Tune from Houston, and he's kind of the one real like day 3 developmental traits-based prospect. And there are real tools there. Like, he's bigger than a lot of these guys like Jaren Hall or Stetson Bennett, for example. He's fast. He's not like ultra explosive or anything like that, but he's a good athlete. He's really good at eluding sacks. He can get on the move. He can be a part of your designed run game. Like, the physical tools are absolutely there. He's got a pretty good arm. Like, he's got, I guess what you would say, a plus arm. Like, it's not a great arm, but it's a legit NFL arm. He can make throws to all levels of the field. He's got really good instincts in those scramble drill playmaking situations. I think he's got good pocket presence. When the rush is there, he actually navigates well and finds the open space in the pocket, buys himself time. Again, he's really good at eluding sacks and getting out of the pocket. Where he goes wrong is when there is a clean pocket, he gives himself about 2 seconds and then he's out. So, like, can he be coached to stand tall in the pocket a little bit more? Maybe. But there are just areas of weakness in his game. Like, he puts the ball in harm's way, makes decisions that you don't like to see. He doesn't read the middle of the field particularly well, especially if you are running like levels concepts. He almost always took the underneath option. It's like, dude, you can drop that right behind the linebacker and you've got another 15 yards easy. He just didn't see and read out that part of the field very well. He also just doesn't survey the whole field. I felt like he went through progressions and read the defense, but he never really got as far as getting to the other side of the field and checking the backside. So he certainly is not a perfect prospect. He probably won't turn into anything. My pro comp for him is Jeff Driscoll. Like, I think it's pretty accurate there. But, you know, 6th round, you want to throw a dart at a guy that has tools and you can get him with the right coach and maybe he turns into something. Why not, right? And that takes us to my number 6 quarterback. And now we're into a range of potential starters at the next level. And this is Tanner McKee out of Stanford. And I'm just very fascinated by the concept of Tanner McKee. He is a traditional stand tall in the pocket. Literally, this dude is a towering 6'6". He can see the whole field. He stands in the pocket. You can see him get through those progressions. Bang, bang, bang. Like 2005, Tanner McKee would have been a 1st round pick. He would have, relative to that era, had a pretty nice projection as like a top 15, top 20 quarterback with the way the game was played back then. Now, we know how the game has changed, right? The emphasis on modern scheming, offensive-minded head coaches, RPOs, play action, spread offenses, read options, get these guys going with their feet. Like, the NFL is doing such a good job nowadays of elevating quarterback play and embracing these athletes at the position. And a guy like Tanner McKee 20 years ago would have fit right in. But now, it's not that he's a bad player, like relative to what quarterback prospects were like 20 years ago, but teams don't need a Tanner McKee anymore because of how the modern framework of the game is. And that's why he's getting pushed out of the 1st round into day 2, into day 3. And as we know, when you're drafted later, you have a shorter leash, and you also are going to have a harder time getting on the field. So for a guy like Tanner McKee, if in the modern framework of the NFL is going to someday become a quality starter, let's just say, honestly, with how good the quarterbacks are in today's game, if he's going to be a quality starter, he legit has to be at least top 10 in the entire NFL with the Joe Burrows and the Aaron Rodgers and all those top guys in the ability to process defenses, make decisions, and play from the pocket. And Let's just be honest. That's fucking hard to be able to develop to that level, because he's not at that level right away. He's good relative to a lot of these prospects for sure, but he still has a ways to go. And if he's drafted in the second or the third round, like I said, he's probably not starting right away. So how many mental reps is he going to get? Well, he'll get mental reps, but how many real reps is he going to get? Live reps? Probably not a lot for the first year or two. Look at like Peyton Manning. Now, he's never going to be Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning's one of the GOATs. But even Peyton Manning threw 30 interceptions in his rookie year or something like that. Learned by trial and fire. McKee probably won't get that opportunity. And if he does, and he plays like that as a second or a third round pick, see ya, dude. We're on to the next one, right? The NFL, these coaches, the way the league works, where there's another quarterback waiting for an opportunity, he's not going to get that time to develop into that player. So it is so funny how a player like this over time has turned into the true, like, he's got to sit. He's got to sit as a backup for probably 2 years, and then he's going to have a short leash once he gets called upon to come in and show, boom, 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 balls out, great decisions, not a ton of picks. I think if he can stick and then over time, like, really work on that processing, you could end up with like a Phillip Rivers type of player. But right now, he's just not quite at that level. Again, he sees the field well, but he's not as accurate as he could be. And he holds onto the ball a little bit too long, which is understandable, right? Like, he has to be perfect from the pocket to be a great player, but he's just not right now. Now, I will say he's a little bit more athletic than you'd expect. He's like sneaky, really good throwing on the move. And, you know, he had that touchdown against, I don't know, it's in the highlight reel. I can't remember who they were playing, but like he finds that throw to the back corner of the end zone. It's like, all right, he's got instincts throwing on the move, but he just can't do a whole lot physically. Like I said, he's going to have to develop. He's going to have to sit. And we'll see in like 2 or 3 years if he can play. But the traits are there. The traits are there. He's an intriguing player, a interesting experiment for the modern league and pocket passers and how they can work in the modern game. But it's got to be the right fit. It's got to be the right fit. If he ends up like Davis Mills, his predecessor at Stanford, who was more mobile, and he gets thrust into a starting opportunity as a third-round pick and just doesn't crush it right away, they're going to be on to the next one. So I'm sorry if that got a little bit long-winded, but I do find it fascinating. Let's move on now to a player who shares the same grade, but is a very different type of prospect. This is going to be a flavor type of deal, and likewise with O'Connell getting the 9 spot over Jaren Hall, Hendon Hooker is going to get the 5 spot over McKee, because I think he's a better player on day one. And he's a very fascinating prospect as well for a couple different reasons. Number one, he's a 25-year-old prospect. He's a 6th-year senior who really burst onto the scene in his final year and was dicing dudes up, really impressive tape, not a ton of weaknesses. His strengths were, you know, like good arm, not great arm. Good accuracy, not great accuracy. And I'll get into who he is as a player a little bit more, but like he was starting to flirt with the first round dialogue. Let's just say that around week 8. Unfortunately, that took a screeching halt as he tore his ACL. So you're talking about a 25-year-old quarterback who is recovering from an ACL, projected to be back around August. Will he be full speed? Where will he be on the depth chart? Will he be back healthy? There are major questions there. I think it's very fair to say that at this point, he's not going round 1, right? So he's coming in as, at best, a 2nd-round pick. At worst, probably a 4th-round pick. He's coming in as a backup, competing for a backup job, not even a starting job, and isn't going to be probably at full speed or out there for the majority of the time. So just because of that injury. So you're talking about a guy that his first year, I'm not saying it's going to be a complete waste, because into late August, and into September, like, he might be able to get up to full speed and climb up the depth chart faster than average, let's just say. But the most likely outcome is that he's not really playing in year one. He might win a backup job, but he certainly is not winning a starting job in camp in August. I would give him a very low probability of doing that. I mean, he'd have to go to a team that has no quarterback, and it's just a wide open competition, and he wins it late in training camp, and that's just not very likely. So you're talking about a guy that probably won't play in his rookie year, and then you get into year two, and he's 26 years old. So, like, there's an obvious devaluation on him for that reason. And then you get into, like, who he is as a player, and there's a lot of Dak Prescott comparisons for him, who, of course, went in the 4th round, got an opportunity thanks to injury, and took off. I can see that as a high-end comp for Hendon Hooker. I think similarly to Dak, he is great in the quick game. He gets the ball out. He understands that he can't just sit in the pocket all day and, you know, pick defenses apart. He's got to read the leverage and have a good pre-snap processor. Like, I like all of that in Hendon Hooker's game. I think his accuracy is solid. I think his arm talent is good. Neither of those are like elite traits. I think his athleticism is good to borderline great, but he's not like, you know, Lamar or Josh Allen or Justin Fields. So, like, he's got a bit of a limit with his traits. Like, I don't think he's ever going to be some superstar quarterback, but he can be a good quarterback someday. The only, like, real knock I have on his tape is, I mean, look, I just went on this tangent about spread offenses working in the NFL and how the college game is now being phased into the NFL. I get all that, but Tennessee really pushes the limits as far as looking at it and saying, that's not an NFL offense. I would love to see their playbook. I'm pretty convinced that they had about 15 plays at Tennessee. And to Hooker's credit, he knew those 15 plays like his freaking mom, like his father. That was dialed into him. He knew exactly what to do on every single play, and he executed it to a phenomenal degree. So I'm not trying to knock him for it. But the reality is they ran a stack spread offense with receivers in wide open space, and it worked. Teams couldn't quite figure it out, but you're not going to see that in the NFL. You're just not. You also had a guy like Jalen Hyatt who was just the perfect fit in that system. So I do think there's some questions of, like, all right, as the playbook gets bigger and he's asked to do more, does he grasp all of that at the same degree? I'm not saying he can't, but it's something he's going to have to prove. So, like, he's not a perfect prospect. He's a solid prospect, and I think if he was able to finish the season, I would have him right in line with, like, Desmond Ridder from last year. But we did see Desmond Ridder fall to the 3rd round. I thought he was more of a day 2 guy. That's kind of where I'm at with Hooker pre-injury, and then you add the injury stuff on top of it, and it just gets a little bit more complicated. But I like his game. I'm giving him a chance. Likeable dude. I'm pulling for him. Pulling for the story for him to come in at 25, 26 years old, recovering from an ACL, and turn into an NFL starter. But I think it's more likely than not that he's just a really, really good backup over time. All right, now we're getting into the first round guys. And this is going to be a big debate, I think, is 2, 3, and 4, these guys especially, and even a little bit with number 1. But I like all these guys. I want to say that first, that I think they're all true first-round talents that if they can get in the right position, I think they're all going to be quality starters plus in the NFL. So it was tough for me to finally, like, put these guys together and rank them, but enough blabbering. My number 4 quarterback is Anthony Richardson, and that might be a little bit of a surprise for people because I really, really like Anthony Richardson, and I put out the big film breakdown on him in January. Please check it out if you haven't yet. It's 26 minutes of me really diving into his strengths and weaknesses, and I don't want to be too redundant with the work I've already put out, but his upside is insane. He is literally everybody's Madden created player, where you're going to go a bigger quarterback, you're going to give him as much arm talent as possible and as much athleticism as possible. And if you run out of attribute points to assign to, you know, in Madden terms, awareness and accuracy, oh well, we'll figure that out, right? That's Anthony Richardson in a nutshell. He's only started for 1 year, and he just has so much to learn as a quarterback. The one thing that really did impress me about him, though, is that he does really try to play from the pocket. And a lot of these guys who are super athletic QBs that know that they can just take off and run all the time and force tough throws, like, to his credit, I think he really wants to get there. He wants to be that great NFL quarterback. He knows what tools he has, and he, at least to me, shows some consciousness of what he's going to have to improve upon to get there. Now, do I want him starting year one? Hell no. I think you are risking him blowing his opportunity because, as we mentioned with like Tanner McKee, teams can't sit around and wait forever. I think he's probably 2 years away from being a good starter in the NFL. I think you're risking him ruining his confidence if he plays really poorly. So, no, I don't want him starting right away. I think you could potentially impede his development by him having to draw upon some of the bad tendencies he has right now, like bailing from clean pockets. I want him sitting. I want him learning. I want him behind a Jared Goff, for example, in Detroit. Please, Detroit, just do it, because that would be insane. Watch a professional, go to work every day, take notes, make the most of your opportunities, get with a brilliant coaching staff like Detroit has, and put a plan in front of him where he can become a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. He is the Josh Allen program. He's not the same prospect, and I know Josh Allen started sooner than I'm saying for Anthony Richardson. I think Josh Allen was further along than Anthony Richardson is. He was also 2 years older. So, like, that's the deal with Richardson. Even if he's QB4 for me, I would take him in the top 10. I really like him as a prospect, and I think I'm higher on him than average. I just might be higher on this class in general than average because I have Will Levis at number 3. And Levis was like the last of these guys that I watched because it took me a while to get his film. And I ended up liking him more than I thought I would, which is a theme with a lot of these quarterbacks, because there is this narrative on Will Levis that I think goes around that he's just this big dummy, that he's making a bunch of mistakes, that he can't read a defense, and he's just horrible. And I'm watching the film, I'm like, that is not the quarterback I'm watching. I mean, this guy looks like a 23-year-old that has run a pro-style system. He can read out the defense. He's really good at recognizing coverages. He wasn't duped by disguised coverages when they rotated the safeties. He was able to identify what the coverage is. He knows, like, okay, it's cover 2. That with the weakness in that coverage is a hole shot. It's cover 3. The weakness there, I can work the sidelines. It's cover 4. Or again, cover 3. I can attack the intermediate middle of the field. He's really good at that. Maybe the best in this class at that. Like, recognizing coverages, strictly that trait. And he's got a great arm. He has an excellent arm. Some of these throws are like ridiculous elite NFL level throws. So throw out this idea that he's a project, that he's an idiot. And the other thing is, like, I thought there was going to be a lot more ugly mistakes of him throwing into coverage, making bad reads. And that just wasn't the case. They were there. And definitely in that Tennessee game, especially, like, that was where like a quarter of his turnover-worthy plays from the season came. But on one hand, like, he was way behind. He was getting his ass kicked all game. They were completely outmatched. At least he was trying stuff. Like, at least we know if he's from behind, you are gonna you'll be susceptible to him pushing too much and making it ugly. But at least he tried stuff. Like, he was trying to lead the comeback instead of just rolling over and dying. Like, he was literally getting sacked on every other play. Receivers weren't open. I don't really know what else people wanted him to do in that Tennessee game. So I think actually Will Levis, in a weird way, has a pretty high floor for all of the discussion about him being this project, a boomer bust player. I don't really see him that way. Actually, I think he's pretty well developed. And he has two pretty specific weaknesses that I think will hold him back from becoming like an elite player. Number one, accuracy. He is about as inaccurate as Anthony Richardson. There's a lot of missed throws on tape, and I don't know if that's going to improve at the next level. Sometimes it does. We've seen it over the last few years with guys like Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson. It's possible. I still think it's unlikely, but it's possible. And as I said, it's not that he can't throw accurate balls. It's just a consistency thing. So maybe that improves. But the other thing is that like it factor, that pocket presence thing. For all of the talk about him not having a good offensive line and getting his shit wrecked every play, that is very much true. But one thing is like considering his offensive line was so bad, he didn't really like get out of the pocket and extend plays as much as I thought he probably should. And I don't think he's got a natural feel in the pocket to sense pressure and navigate to the open space. And again, that's just a trait that probably isn't going to improve a whole lot at the next level. So to me, it's like, I think he has a nice floor to maybe be like Carson Wentz. And I know that takes like a really new meaning nowadays. I mean, like somewhere between when Wentz was good and what we have now, where like his confidence is just completely ruined. You know, like Indianapolis Carson Wentz was the 23rd best quarterback in the NFL. I think that could maybe be Will Levis. And I think like I see a lot of Matthew Stafford in his game as well. Whereas if the accuracy improves a little bit, if he can like get to the next level and actually trust his offensive line a little bit more because it was so bad at Kentucky, and like step up in the pocket and be a little bit better in that area, you could get a Matthew Stafford-esque quarterback, which is in that like 8 to 12 range, right? So I like Will Levis. Again, I don't think he's as risky as people say he is. I think you just have to live with some of the negatives in his game, like I said, with the accuracy and the pocket presence. All right, then we have CJ Stroud at number 2, and I just did the film analysis on him, so I'm probably going to keep this one short and just defer you to the video I made on Monday. But all in all, another quarterback where I was pleasantly surprised. I thought his processing and decision-making was some of the best in this class. It's right there, in my opinion, with like Will Levis. You know, I think if you go down the board to like Aiden OConnell was really good at that. Levis was pretty good. Bryce Young, who we're going to talk about, like really good in that department. Super accurate. When he's pressured, he will get out of the pocket, use his athleticism to extend plays, throws with anticipation over the middle of the field. He checks a ton of boxes that you're not used to Ohio State quarterbacks checking. Like he legit goes through his progressions. He doesn't stare down first reads like some of his predecessors there. I'm not so much worried about that. Now, did he have a really low degree of difficulty at Ohio State? Are there a lot of plays that I kind of just throw out because it's like, well, yeah, he had 4 seconds to throw from the pocket there, and the guy was wide open. Like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, I suppose, but there's a lot of good there too. There's a lot of NFL throws there as well. So, you know, I don't love his pocket presence. I think he does bail from clean pockets. He doesn't really sense when there isn't pressure there, if that makes sense. Like he's kind of got a clock in his head. He's going to take off and run, and he can leave meat on the bones of some plays sometimes. I think when he gets into scramble drill situations, he's more erratic than certainly Bryce Young or even like Anthony Richardson or some of these other guys. Like he'll kind of panic and he'll make some bad decisions in those situations. He'll make some really nice throws as well, though. So like there's a couple weaknesses there that I think you live with, very similarly to Will Levis, but there's so much to like as well that I love his floor. Like looking at like Indianapolis or Carolina, where I think they have pretty good surrounding situations. You can plug them in. You got a quality starter. Watch the video on him. I really worked my way through and ultimately compared him to Jared Goff with wheels. And that's the way I view CJ Stroud. And that takes me to number 1, Bryce Young. It's Bryce Young. It's always been Bryce Young. This guy is sensational. And people are comparing him to Steph Curry. My comparison is bite-sized Mahomes, because there is a natural it factor about him, and that's, you know, what's an it factor? That's lazy analysis. No, watch Bryce Young, and you know what the fuck I'm talking about. The game moves in slow motion for this kid, and it shows up in his processing, his decision-making, really good. Despite his height, he attacks the middle of the field extremely well. Unlike Kyler Murray, unlike Russell Wilson, two guys with height concerns, Bryce Young attacks the middle of the field with ease, precision, anticipation, with accuracy. I'm not worried about that. His pocket presence is on that elite plane where he has that extra sixth sense, the eye in the back of his head. If he's got blindside pressure, no problem. He somehow sees it and makes that guy miss. If he's extending the play, he has that rare ability. Even when he's towards the sideline and nobody's open, he still has that it factor, that knowledge of the game to be like, okay, wait, if I just juke back inside and make this guy miss, I can continue to extend this play. I can run back into the pocket and hold on to this ball. Like, that's Mahomes, Rodgers, Burrow. So few quarterbacks understand how to do that shit, and he does. His arm, I don't know if I said this already, is great. Now, it's not Mahomes' arm, it's not Herbert's arm, but it is more than good enough. He has no problem commanding the ball from a clean pocket, outside the pocket, on the move. For whatever size concerns you might have on him, it does not impede his arm talent. So, like, that's really it. Like, I think, are there negatives on his game? Yeah, I think he can get better against the blitz. That's applicable to most young quarterbacks. I think when teams disguised zone coverages on him, he struggled with that a little bit more than, like I said, with Will Levis. And sometimes, because he knows he's so good at improvising, there are missed reads. But it's not like a huge problem. That's just something you got to bring up when you're talking about a #1 pick. Like, he will be looking in the area when a guy's wide open, and instead, occasionally he'll scramble, and usually he turns it into some spectacular play, or he'll see that guy late. But, like, overall, he's a phenomenal prospect. The only thing is the size. And if you're worried about it, I get it. He is a complete outlier. He is probably going to come in at like 5'10 and a half. I don't think he's 5'9. He doesn't look 5'9 on tape. Kyler Murray looks 5'9 on tape. I think Bryce Young is almost 5'11, and he's slender. But he doesn't take a lot of big hits because he's so elusive. He's so smart in that way. And is his durability going to be any more of a problem than like Will Levis, who takes a bunch of big hits in the pocket because he can't see the rush coming? I don't know. I think they probably have similar durability questions. So I love Bryce Young. I've always loved Bryce Young, and rewatching his tape didn't change that. He is a spectacular quarterback, and I would take him #1. I'm just going to end this video by kind of a hot take. If I was the Bears, I would take him #1. Justin Fields might work out, but I feel very confident that Bryce Young is not just going to work out, that he's going to be a top 10 quarterback. And yeah, there's not really a whole lot else to say other than that, but that's just where I'm at with it. I know other people are at it, and some people think that's a joke of a take, but look, man, he's a much better player than Justin Fields. And that's saying a lot, because Fields had a really good year last year, but Fields has a long way to go as a passer. I think Fields could only dream of being as good as Bryce Young as a passer now. So we're going to end it with a little bit of a hot take there. I really hope you guys enjoyed the rankings. This is going to be a big one. So again, please do hit that like button if you enjoyed. I really hope you did. And make sure you're subscribed. We're going to have these coming out for every position group this year. Check out my Patreon if you want the full rankings for quarterbacks in every position group. Drop your comments below on who you think I snubbed or where you think I went wrong in my rankings. And until next time, thank you for watching. We'll see you then.